Let's start by closing our eyes, rubbing our hands, bringing our hands to heart center. And just taking a moment to arrive completely. Thank you for being here. And we're going to sound 3 ohms. But before we do that, if you want to dedicate your class to someone who's struggling, someone who is ill, or someone who has recently died, now's a great time to think of them, to picture their face, smiling, happy, and well. Empty your breath and let's take an inhale together. Ah. 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 Release your hands down and shake them out a little bit. And before we go right into position, we're just going to do a little face yoga. So you're going to take your knuckles like they're magical ironing boards, irons, and you're going to just stroke and pull your knuckles across your forehead a couple of times. You can take it over the arch of your eye. You can go up a little higher, but you probably feel a little like, I feel like it's nearly like a little pop, crackle, a little crackle. That sounds weird, but I can feel stuff like there's tension in my forehead. And then take just the pads of your fingers and just like lightly tap underneath your eyes. So this is stimulating circulation and it's oddly soothing. And then take your first 2 knuckles and you're going to drag right across your cheek. One more time. Ta-da. And shake out your hands before we do the jaw. And then put your thumbs underneath your chin and squeeze along the edge of your jaw just a couple of times. So this is like a little massagey first, and then I get a little tougher on the 3rd time. So I push in like I'm doing a little acupuncture session. You might feel a little tenderness right where your jawbones meet, and then shake it out. And then find your way into a wide-kneed child pose. And first we start just for a couple breaths. Just for a couple breaths in with our arms straight forward before we add a twist to it. So taking your knees wide, stretching your arms out, forehead onto the ground. And before we get too comfortable, come up onto your elbows, and you're going to thread your left elbow underneath your right arm and bring your left ear to the ground. And you can either have your right arm stretching straight forward, or you can wrap it around behind you, whichever works for you. Great. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh it out. Whew. So today I thought we would concentrate on the liver and the gallbladder. And the reason I thought this was because this is like, that's kind of funny actually. The reason I thought about this is because Pluto is going into Aquarius on the 19th of November. Before that happens, we have a full moon in Taurus that is conjunct Uranus. And then Pluto goes into Aquarius. So very, very in broad strokes, this full moon in Taurus is kind of like nearly you could say lighting the way for Pluto to make its final exit out of Capricorn and move into Aquarius, where he will be for the next 20 years. So this is a big shift. Pluto entered Capricorn in about 2008. And so has been there for some time. And this year, end of last year, not end, beginning of last year, really, but it came into, it's been going back and forth between Aquarius and Pluto and Aquarius and Capricorn as it moves forward and then goes retrograde and then moves forward again and retrograde again. And the reason I say that it's kind of a precursor or illuminating the way with this full moon is because while the moon will be in Taurus, which is the natural opposite of Scorpio, where our sun is, it is so close to the, like aligned with the planet Uranus, that it acts like one big ball of, well, I was going to say fun, but it might not always be so fun. And Uranus is really the planet that brings the unexpected, brings epiphanies, lightning bolt insight. It brings, traumas and accidents and injuries. It brings the truth. It is the sign that rules the collective as well as the individual. And it rules Aquarius. Hence, the connection to Pluto moving into Aquarius. Now, keeping your knees just as wide as they are, come back onto your elbows, and then thread your right arm behind your left elbow. Bring your right ear to the ground. You can moan and groan a little bit, especially if you find yourself alone at home doing this practice. Let sounds come out of your mouth. It's absolutely okay. And feel what it feels like on that side. Now, these outer planets, when they make shifts like this, it's really the time where it changes that is the most potent and rich time. It is the time that we feel it the most. And sometimes it really feels like a new pair of shoes that you know are going to be okay, but you have to break them in. And it's kind of like the same with these shifts that like it feels like, this is different. This is new. Like, I don't know how to navigate this. I'm not quite sure how to orient myself, or what do I do inside of me? All of my values have kind of shifted, or my focus has shifted, or I want to do this thing that I've never wanted to do before. When the shifts happen with the more personal planets, they much more for me show up as they show up more like moods, not these deep seated drives or this, you know, intense need to change. But Pluto, the planet itself, is the planet of transformation. Take 3 more full deep breaths. And then unwind your way. And you're going to slide forward, just lying on your belly for a moment. Maybe you stack your forearms. Maybe you're turning your head to one side or the other. And then we're going to lift up onto our elbows and move into Sphinx. Make the adjustments, bringing your elbows shoulder distance apart. Maybe take your legs wider. Maybe take your legs closer together. So in popular astrology, popular, mainstream, there's a lot of drama about how all of the planets are presented. And then there's a lot of like, oh no, Pluto did this to me. Oh no, Mars is making me feel this way. Oh no. There's a lot of like blaming in a way. But particularly with the Pluto, like a planet like Pluto, because transformation, as you know in your own biography, is never comfortable. It's never just like, oh yeah, that's easy peasy. Look at me transform. Instead, it is often uncomfortable. It's challenging. You might find yourself doubting the direction that you are transforming in. I mean, yes, one more time, we're going to talk about caterpillars and butterflies, that transformation. But it's not like the caterpillar is like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to be a butterfly. Let me just take a little nap, and then wakes up as a butterfly. I don't imagine it has that knowledge yet. It instead has to go on this drive on, like, they need to build a cocoon. They need to go into this different state. And then what happens when it's in this like protected state is the caterpillar completely breaks down utterly. It's like a primordial soup nearly. And out of that, then the butterfly is created. So it's a complete rearranging being, of our being, if we were caterpillars becoming butterflies. Now, why we use this analogy is because it's dramatic. It's unanticipated. Yes, you and I know a lot, don't we? And we know that the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. But if we ourselves are like, if this is my version of caterpillar, I have no idea what my version of butterfly is going to look like. But I want to be attuned enough in my own caterpillar nature so I can find those cues and I can feel where I'm being kind of guided towards and pushed towards so that I can surrender and be brave enough to fulfill the transformation. Allow yourself to feel the pose. Notice that it gets more intense. So the butterfly and the caterpillar reminds me like my dad and mom came up with this wonderful little thing that they do at Easter time actually for the children, where they would have us make caterpillars out of beeswax or crocheted or a little stick with paint on it. And on Good Friday, we would go out into the garden and we would hide these made caterpillars in different places. And then on Easter Sunday, when we were doing the classic Easter egg hunt, the place where we had buried or hidden our caterpillar, there would be this beautiful butterfly made out of either paper or silk or something dramatic. And so in my childlike brain, I've always connected this transformation of caterpillar to butterfly with the resurrection. But that's how much we need to practice being able to change, being able to transform. Now, either stay here in Sphinx, or you can extend your arms into seal. And look, Leo's head pops up. Hey! Let your shoulders be naturally heavy. But when we study the biography, I guess you could call it that, the biography of Jesus Christ, especially when we study it through the eyes of anthroposophy, it is a story that again and again has these tremendous transformations. The first when he was 12, and the two Jesus children become one. For some people, it's even hard to imagine having a soul, let alone the merging of souls. With your next inhale, lift up a little bit and then lower yourself all the way down to the ground. Bring your forehead to your forearms. And then at the baptism, we understand that it's the Christ being incarnated into the human being. The one and only time that this event takes place. Huge transformation. Now bring your hands underneath your shoulders and lift up into downward facing dog just as a transition. Stretch your right leg long, and with your exhale, bring your right knee to your right wrist. If you're not sure, you can always bring your right knee further out. And a good test is to see if my video will unfreeze. You want to see that you can support yourself on your shin and then start to walk your hands forward. Coming into sleeping swan. So your forehead comes to the ground. You can stretch your arms long, or you can use your arm as a pillow. I guess you could try to use a dog, but it's not being really compliant. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh out your breath. For us that are so, I'm going to say, attached to our personality, it's so hard to imagine another being incarnating into you and basically taking over as a good thing. You know, we're so identified with our personality and less so with our I, less so with our higher ego. So after you make the adjustments, really allow your commitment to come into being soft and still. Feeling the sensation, and the sensations might be intense. But instead of just deciding, oh, I like that, oh, I don't like that, get more curious. I wonder why that is so, or does it feel better on the inhale or the exhale? And then finally, after 3 years, I mean, even before the 3 years are up, the way Rudolf Steiner describes it is that the body, the human body, was actually struggling to maintain with this intense force of the Christ in the body. And talks about how like the cells were breaking down and it was hard to like keep it together, so to say. But then at the crucifixion, this huge transformation. The ultimate, the resurrection. And again, it wasn't something that just like, you know, flash. Like it didn't just like up crucified, resurrection. It was, you know, crucified, and then there's this mystery, this time in between, similar to the caterpillar in the cocoon, where we understand that Christ went into the underworld. I mean, I say we understand through our, you know, childlike understanding of it. And then it's understood, you know, after 3 days. And that was a master's timeline. The one time that the Christ being incarnates into a physical body. becoming the template for us and how we can develop, what direction to move in, how to become. See if instead of hardening and trying just to hold back, you can actually move towards the sensation in your body. And then with your inhale, start to walk your hands back towards you. And we're going to sweep the left leg around, and you're going to stack your knees. Now, sometimes this feels like it just doesn't quite feel okay. You can always come up onto your knees and actually like cuddle them closer, and then put your butt back on the ground. And lift up your chest. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, bow your head down. Maybe your chin's coming to your chest. Maybe your forehead's touching your knee. Maybe you're bringing your chin in front of your knee. Somewhere in between, most like. Take a full inhale and soften into the pose. So Pluto entering Aquarius, this planet of transformation and transmutation, a planet of truth, as well as no, let me rephrase, a planet of transformation and change and death. Is moving into Aquarius, which is the zodiac sign that rules truth, that is about our future, is even about technology. A sign that rules the collective and the individual, that rules both madness and genius. And wherever Pluto moves into, wherever it is in your personal chart, wherever it is in our cosmos, we can expect intensity. And don't worry, we're not staying in this pose for 20 years. And then start to roll up. You might be like, oh, that was really short, but don't worry, we're keeping our legs like this. And you're going to take your right arm and you're going to slide it out to your right, and you're going to stretch your left arm up. Let your elbow, your bottom elbow be heavy. And just stretch first your left side here. It should feel pretty Chill. And then reach back up and take the other side. And that should be a little bit more intense because you're pinning down your bottom leg. And so that resistance makes for a juicier stretch, a more intense stretch. You can even let your hands soften around your head if you like to, or you can keep reaching it out. I feel like when I keep my fingers active, it does really go a little bit deeper down my side body. But you get to figure out what makes sense for you. Now, the collective is amazing because it includes all of the individuals. And as we know, it includes the people who are not yet individuals too. The people who haven't really figured out how to be themselves. It includes every variation of being on the path. And then inhale up, and you're going to slide your left foot closer so you can put your foot on the ground. You're going to take your right arm behind you, and you're going to go deeper into the stretch. So instead of just doing the side body, you're going to stretch into the twist. So you're going to lift up, and then with your exhale, turn your upper body to your left, bringing your right elbow to the outside of your left knee. If it's too easy, it's not the way. Inhale, get tall. Exhale, twist. And we're doing a little yangness. So you can even pull your belly in. Deepen your Ujjayi breath for a moment. And then release. Unwind. And stretch your legs out. And depending how your back is today, if you're having, if your back is sore, it's really nice for your back to keep it in a neutral position. But you can still really stretch your hamstrings. So to keep your back in a neutral position as we get into the pose is also very helpful, even if your back is fantastic. So you can take your hands behind you and then start to lean forward. And for some people, this is enough. This is plenty. Now, if you have a little bit more range, you might actually just allow yourself to come down to the ground. Yep, you make the pancake verb. But usually it's somewhere in between. Maybe you can put your elbows on the ground. You want to find what elements can you invite to make the intensity something that you can stay present with instead of having to check out or disassociate. So Pluto has been, and the focus has been in this very Saturnian sign of Capricorn. And, whether we think of lockdowns or control or this, very practical way of being, Saturn is often connected to the old, the tradition. And we can see this in many different themes where it's nearly like certain traditions people have been clinging to, or, traditions of government, or think like old ideas, and of course, these two signs are right next to each other. Aquarius, that is the future, and Saturn ruled Capricorn, that is the past. That is the tradition. Don't worry, we're not losing our planet Saturn, so we'll still have traditions, but that they're really, in our when we're looking at our personal chart, we nearly say, oh, like that's where you're obsessive. Wherever we find Pluto, that's where there's a black hole. And so that intensity is moving and shifting into a whole new way of being. Which is really, on theme with how in our own biographies we want to have the courage to be, to continue to move forward and to be in one phase of our life and be like, yes, I'm going to try this, I'm going to figure out that, or I'm going to be in this tradition, and then a new period comes and we have to reassess and we have to re-emerge and we have to think how we've been doing things and what choices we've made. And start to slowly walk your hands back towards you, and you're going to bend your left knee and you're going to roll over your thigh, and ta-da! You might even do the Nike move of throwing your arms back and seeing that you're supported by your left shin. If you need to, beautiful, Ceci. If you need to, you just move your left knee to the left to find more stability, and it's totally fine for your left buttocks to be up in the air. And then walk your hands forward, coming into sleeping swan on the left side. You can moan and groan if you're alone. If you're in company, get them to moan and groan with you. It's always more fun. But make the small adjustments you need to come into the pose, and then become soft and on purpose be willing to stay. So the new moon, just that would be the full moon in Taurus is conjunct Uranus. And while the moon really likes to be in Taurus, this conjunction makes it an unstable kind of radiance. So maybe there's going to be a themes of things being revealed or exposed that haven't been exposed before. Maybe there's going to be epiphanies. Naturally for us, the full moon has this element of celebration. And we have some celebrations because we're just joyful and that's cool and it's awesome and that's what we're celebrating. But we have other celebrations that are really markers of time, or, shoot, I just celebrated my 50th birthday, and, it wasn't like I was like, I'm going to decide to turn 50. That happens. And so we celebrate that moment, and it might not be such a, it was, for me, it was serendipitous. It was an amazing time. It was the right time and all that. But it isn't always that those two moments coincide. So even when things are imperfect, when things are being exposed that aren't necessarily comfy and good, even just celebrating the full moon in its illuminating quality, even if what it illuminates isn't always the nicest stuff, can actually temper and affect how we receive what has been uncovered. But there's this theme in the past year and a half, 2 years, it's really been kind of interesting to watch how there's been a lot of intense Uranus moments, and there's been a lot of intensity with the way different planets have entered into the sign of Uranus, of Aquarius. And I really feel like it's been like this kind of like we've been getting previews, we've been getting little glimpses, we've been getting little tastes or bouche moves, to both intrigue us, challenge us, excite us on this journey, which is inevitable. And we can feel like there's a sensibility that there is a certain unrest that isn't just true in one part of the world, but it's true in our bodies, maybe even in this pose. And so start to walk your hands back. Maybe you forgot that the next pose is even more challenging. Mhm. Sweep or carry your beautiful right leg around and stack your knees. You might find on this side, more so than the last side, you need to come up onto your knees and cuddle them. And then let your butt come down to the ground. Take a full, brave inhale. And with your exhale, surrender to the experience. Let your head be heavy. Let your chin hang. It seems it's surrendering to this experience that the procession of time procession. We none of us are gonna like avoid getting older, just like we can't stop Pluto from moving forward. And so we get this opportunity to be graceful about these transitions. In our public sphere, we can see what not being graceful with these transitions looks like. Where you have 75-year-old women trying to look like a 20-something-year-old, and it's just kind of, well, we each have our tastes. Talk about Aquarius, Pluto, and Aquarius. Everyone has their kinks and their fetishes, but for me, it feels so tragic to be fighting this natural course of time. And even as I say that, of course, I mourn, losing the youth and whatnot. But there is something new with moving into a different phase of our lives, of becoming the crone, becoming more ourselves. Notice if you can soften towards the intensity. But this courage to move forward, even though we don't know what's coming, even though it can be completely different after we move through this transformation. Whenever, so often when Rudolf Steiner writes about the evolution of Christianity, I mean, I'm reading right now the collection of lectures that he never meant to publish together as a book, but Esoteric Christianity. And again, he lifts up the story of the Bodhisattva. Again and again, he talks about the necessity of the Buddha coming first, Gautama Buddha, and then the reincarnation of the Bodhisattva nearly every 100 years in order to help prepare us for the future. And the story he tells about how we are to recognize a bodhisattva is that they don't know who they are until their 29th year. And then a change happens in them where it's a completely different person. Now, lift up. And let's do the easier side first. So slide your left arm out to the left and then drape your arm over your ear. Let your elbow be heavy. It looks a little bit like we're pretending to be ballerinas. And then rise up to center and slide your right arm out and drape your left arm over your ear. Feel the difference, how by pinning our bottom leg comes more intense. You know, in I wasn't alive in the 60s. Um, but from what I've understood, the transformation that happened in our culture, it was so cool because it was before cell phones, it was before, social media. But out of the core of the very being of all of these individuals all around the world, they knew to grow their hair long and to not do what their dad did and to start to explore music and find different avenues of expression. It was amazing. But it came from the inside of their very being. It wasn't manufactured from the outside. All right, stretch up tall. And then place your right foot on the ground. Take your right hand behind, like right onto the yoga mat, right behind your spine. Lift tall with your left hand, like you're doing your Rikni eye. And then twist away from your arm, bringing your left elbow to the outside or hugging your knee towards your chest. Works too. Inhale, get tall. Exhale, twist. So in this times where we're changing, we're moving into this intensity around the individual and the collective, we want to start to understand that being able to sense these deep urges and like guidance from within in each one of us and each individual is part of how our collective is going to change. So if you're ignoring and trying to push down that voice that's telling you what to do, don't. And then unwind, hug your knees in, drop your head, give yourself a good squeeze. And then lift up your head and slide into Shavasana, the ultimate Pluto pose, the corpse. So cool thing about corpses is they're not pretending to be anybody else. Close your eyes. If your lower back hurts, you can always take your feet as wide as the yoga mat and then drop your knees together. But allow your eyes to be closed, your body to be still, and keep your attention here. With your next inhale, start to invite your awareness to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, your face and your nose. And then stretch long arms above your head. And with your exhale, curl into a ball. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Allow your hands to meet at heart center. Feel your thumbs against your breastbone. Lift your heart up into your thumbs. Close your eyes and lift up an image of the person you dedicated your class to. Smiling, alive, well. Empty your breath and let's close with one Om. Take a full deep inhale through your nose. Ah. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow forward, together we say, Namaste. And so much love. Woo! And thank you.